have to have the meetings recorded, but at least you're not seeing it all. He's the chair of it, and we have a county health doctor, Dr. Cho. So okay. They're gonna fill it stronger. Oh, you wanna share that with us? It's already published. You know about it? Because we're talking about, we just had. Yeah, okay.
We need 5 insurance.
That'd be great.
No, because I'm looking for new challenges.
Your population needs it.
Well, hello and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us in beautiful Clearwater. As you can see, I have a lot of folks up here that were interested in joining me today to recognize and highlight for our state National Fentanyl Awareness Day. And just, if you'll give me a moment, I would like to recognize some of them that are with us today. We have Clearwater Chief of Police Daniel Slaughter. Gulfport Chief of Police Robert Vincent was going to be here. I don't think he could make it. Gulfport Fire Chief Renee Fernandez. Pinellas Park Chief of Police Michael Hayworth. We also have Council Member Kathleen Beckman, Vice Mayor Mark Burker, and Council Member Lena Texiera. Did I get that?
Close. She had to go with yes.
Don't tell her.
No.
And we're just so grateful to everyone here. We also have John Kleinfelder, Mike Kavaksev, Mark Rowley, Mark Rowley will be speaking. He drove all the way here from Jacksonville. Today is an important day for our state and nation as we recognize the tremendous effect that fentanyl has had on the lives of so many families across this nation. I can speak for myself and probably everybody standing up here with me. We have all met, worked with, encountered someone who has lost a loved one to opioid overdose, and it is really tragic. But we all stand united here today and recognizing the importance of this day and highlighting for all of our citizens. We are living in a new time, a new age where we have a poison in such volumes that is so potent within our nation that we have to adjust and fight it accordingly. The latest data nationally showed that more than 100,000 Americans died in 1 year's time due to drug overdose, and that is skyrocketing. We do not see that slowing down. There was also a report released last week that showed the number of fentanyl overdose deaths nationwide more than tripled over the last 5 years. We know fentanyl is the #1 killer of Americans aged 18 to 45, and we are finding this deadly synthetic and other drugs at rapid rates. And that is why you will hear us often saying one pill will kill. The DEA said recently 6 out of 10 pills that were confiscated had a lethal dose of fentanyl. We know the only way we will have a fighting chance at keeping people alive is if those that are struggling with an opioid dependency seek help. They can go to treatmentatlas.org to find where to get help. It's never been more important if you are struggling, because now this fentanyl can be laced in drugs that we never saw it in before. And it is now showing up more and more routinely, and can have a fatal effect on those who take a drug that they may have taken for some time. But today we're here to announce a new initiative, and that will help supply our first responders, paramedics, police, firefighters with naloxone throughout the state of Florida. We are going to make sure that it is not only provided an increased amount, but that it is done at Walmart locations throughout our state. And we're going to do that through the Helping Heroes program. And through this partnership with Walmart, who has agreed to help get these life-saving medication in the hands of our first responders over the next 10 years, we will make sure that those registered agencies and those that serve them can go into Walmart, show their identification, and get a replenishment of that drug from those participating stores. And as I stated before, this is important, more important now than it was even just a few years ago. The numbers show now that just here in Florida, we lose 23 people a day to opioid-related overdose deaths. And much of that is due to fentanyl. We know that right now, there is enough fentanyl in our nation to kill the entire U.S. population many times over. That's just the sheer volume that has made its way into our nation. Right now, some reports say that there are 700,000 people waiting to rush into our nation in just 2 days when Title 42 expires. And regardless of your opinion on migration, immigration, the policies that have been implemented over the last 2 years that have broken down that structure and that safety at the border, the fact remains that that is about to happen. And when that happens, it spreads our resources so thin that fentanyl floods into our nation and into our state. There are reports from those at the border that say a majority of those intend to come to Florida. So those behind me who are already facing a challenge that grips them daily, that they have to fight daily to save lives, that may get worse. And so today it is so important that we recognize not only this new program, Helping Heroes, that we're increasing the amount of naloxone available in our state, we're increasing the locations in which it will be available, but we also highlight the heroic efforts of those standing behind me that are saving lives every day. We have with us today a lifesaver, a true hero, a shero you might call her, who saved a life with naloxone. And what I like to point out to Floridians is when first responders, or particularly law enforcement, when they take the oath to protect and serve, many don't understand that that also will now be carrying with it a challenge, a duty to save lives with naloxone. In fact, this is something new that many are taking on and have already had to save lives using naloxone. But it is so important because it's said many times that if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. I will repeat that again. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And if we can give Floridians a second chance of life, maybe they can redefine and find that purpose and push through a challenging time in their life, and we can truly turn this tide. Under the Helping Heroes initiative, firefighters, school resource officers, paramedics, and other emergency personnel, like I said, will be able to pick up this important life-saving medication at participating Walmart pharmacies and stores throughout our state. First responder agencies that are interested in applying and registering can go to doseofreality.com/helpingheroes. There they will find what Walmart stores are participating and how they can sign their agency up for the program. It's important to me as Attorney General that our first responders know that not only I as Attorney General, our office, but all of Florida has their backs. Doing that means we're giving them the tools and the resources to do their jobs, and it's my hope that this new program, Helping Heroes, will do just that. Every life that they save helps us maintain a strong and safe state. So I am grateful for those with me today, and I'd like to bring up, without further ado, Chief of Police Daniel Slaughter. And I'm just so happy to say Chief of Police for about 2 more weeks.
Yes.
And we just commend him for a life of service to this city, this county. Certainly I have known him as a friend and the head hero here in Clearwater, and we're just so grateful for your lifetime of service. Congratulations on your retirement. Although the city of Clearwater is not losing him, he is going on to great things in management for the city. So Chief, if you'll come on up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Last year, the Clearwater Police Department responded to 294 overdoses, which is a 14% increase from the previous year. We investigated 58 fatal overdoses, which is a 7% increase from the previous year. And previous year were all increases. I shared the statistics because I think the numbers are staggering, but I don't like using the statistics because I think it becomes way too easy to forget that that data point is a real person. Like a 49-year-old mother experienced an overdose who was discovered by her teenage daughter when the teenage daughter came home from school. Or a 10-year-old child who called 911 when both of her parents were unconscious from an overdose. Both are real stories about real people. Both are real-life examples of people who were saved by naloxone, administered by public safety professionals. We haven't walked in everyone's shoes, and so I don't believe it's appropriate for us to be judgmental on how people found themselves suffering from addiction. Whether they were a victim of a violent crime or received treatment from a serious injury and got addicted through pain medication, or maybe a child that grew up in an environment with addiction or even worse, abuse. What we choose to focus on in public safety is saving lives. And the 49-year-old mother or the parent of the 10-year-old that I mentioned have a chance, thanks to naloxone, to beat addiction. To beat addiction, they have to survive it. And that is what this steady stream of supply of naloxone is critical to helping us in law enforcement and emergency medical services do. I can't thank the Attorney General Ashley Moody enough for always supporting public safety and making this opioid reversing agent available. I also want to thank the Walmart organization for working with the Attorney General to make this happen. Many families have members who are fighting with addiction, and many of the families have members who have beaten addiction. I hope to give every opportunity for those people to beat addiction, praying that the years down the road, the family will celebrate a Thanksgiving dinner or a weekly spaghetti night, and they will look across the table and be just grateful that they have the company of the loved one that beat addiction. Attorney General, I appreciate everything you've done to start a family down a path of healing. And those family members may not know what you have done here today and the role you have played in the recovery process or all of the work you have done in your career, but your friends in public safety do. And to kind of put a face to a real life scenario, I'd like to ask Corporal Ashley Hinkenbein to come up and talk about a real life scenario that she utilized this and made a difference. Ashley?
Thank you, sir. Hi, I'm Corporal Ashley Hinkenbein. I'm, like the chief said, boots on the ground. In May of last year, another officer and I were on routine patrol, we'll call it, and a couple 911 hang-ups came out from a street nearby where we were at, and we had absolutely no information, just an address. And me and the other officer turned down, we saw a female doing what we believe was she was trying to do chest compressions on a man. He was laying in the middle of the road next to a car. So me and the other officer jump out, the other officer immediately recognizes and he needed CPR. I administered 1 dose of Narcan. We're waiting for fire and paramedics because we were just the first ones there and we had to wait several minutes for them to get there. And I think had I not had that tool available to me, maybe it could have made the difference between this man surviving. So I just wanted to share that, boots on the ground story with you guys, and I think this new program is really going to help us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Hello, everyone. I want to begin by thanking you, Attorney General, for inviting me here today to speak on something that almost daily now impacts everything I do working at Jacksonville Fire Rescue. I want to thank each of you standing up here today whose hard work has most assuredly saved countless lives in your communities. I am sure any of these first responders standing here today can confirm that going on an overdose call, it is not fun. Going on an overdose call, it is exhausting. It is frustrating, and it takes its emotional toll on all of us. The continued exposure to those who overdose can cause us to develop negative attitudes about people, not just their behavior, but of the individuals themselves. This is compassion fatigue, which is inherent in an insidious job-related hazard for law enforcement officers, firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics. This fatigue is something that I suffered from until in 2015, a call that an individual was overdosing. It was my friend. Opioids are the reason why I stood alongside a casket of a close friend's sister. Opioids are why I wore this very uniform at a fellow firefighter's funeral. They are the reason I am haunted by the cries from parents, pleading as I arrive on scene. Please help, hurry, do something. The overwhelming prevalence of opioids in our country does not allow me to follow these voices of attitude, of disinterest, or the voices of ignorance about the ravages of addiction. Instead, my team and I, we answer 911 calls, just like the team up here, each and every day, making sure that we carry multiple doses of naloxone, ready to save lives of anyone who comes into contact with these dangerous toxins. Because now it's not just even those that are battling addiction who are at risk for opioid overdose. Fentanyl is being laced into fake prescription pills, cocaine, meth, and many more. An overdose can happen to anyone who may be unaware that their drug is fake or is laced. And it becomes more imperative that each month we make sure that we carry these life-saving opioid reversal agents. In 2018, I launched a program in my home city of Jacksonville to provide overdose recognition training and nasal naloxone to the public. It just so happened after this that one of the very first kits ended up being used by me. While off duty, I stopped at a Wendy's restaurant for lunch, and when I walked in, I immediately noticed staff frantically running to the restroom, attempting to prop open the door. I soon discovered a man unconscious, 23 years old, lying on the floor, his skin pale, lips blue, barely breathing. His grandmother runs in screaming, "Oh no, he's done drugs." I immediately ran to my car and retrieved my nasal naloxone from my glove box. Within a minute of administering the naloxone, his breathing and skin color began to improve. Because the closest fire station was already out on another call, the first paramedics took 10 minutes to arrive. I invite you all now, hold your breath for 10 minutes. We all know too well that no breath for 10 minutes is death. Naloxone gave this young man a second chance. And I'm no longer suffering from compassion fatigue because this drug allowed me and continues to allow me and all of us up here to be in the business of giving people a second chance, a third chance, a fourth, maybe even a 14th chance. The Helping Heroes program will help ensure that first responders will always have access to this life-saving drug. And those parents' screams, the child is dying, they're quelled by our first responders being properly prepared for these life and death situations. It is very comforting to know that we as Florida first responders have Attorney General Moody's and her team's backing. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here to help us recognize National Fentanyl Awareness Day. Again, this is a synthetic opioid that has poured into our country, into our state, you know, really challenging our first responders here in Florida. I have been incredibly inspired, impressed, driven by the way they have tackled this and engaged and saved lives. And we in Florida will continue to make sure that they have the tools to do that here in Florida effectively. And we appreciate you not only helping us highlight the work of these great men and women standing behind me, but conveying to Floridians the challenge we are facing with fentanyl, the opioid crisis, and how important it is if a Floridian is struggling with substance abuse that they seek help now. It could save their life. And I'd be happy to take any questions anyone might have.
Is this a reimbursement process? Can you describe the process of working with Walmart? Are they stocking it, we're paying them, and they show us invoices? Are we contracting and giving them money to do that? How's that working?
Yes, and thank you for that question. And he was not put up to that, but I appreciate it because as Attorney General, who had a hand in the fight against opioid manufacturers, distributors, pharmacy, litigated that historic case, brought over $3 billion into Florida to combat the crisis. We were also able, through those efforts, to secure product in the form of naloxone from some of those within that litigation. And as part of that, however, as you know, we can push to secure a product, but we have to have a program, a facilitation of distribution and then storage when it is a product like naloxone. Thankfully, Walmart was willing to step up. They have coordinated with their stores, with their employees, and with our office to make sure that they can distribute and store that for our first responders. And they have already started working with those agencies and officers that need this so desperately within certain communities to supply that. And so that is how that is happening, and we are grateful to Walmart for working so diligently to get this up and running in such a short period of time.
So who's paying for it?
Well, it is part of our recovery from the historic opioid litigation, and certainly Walmart is helping with the distribution.
Is there an advantage to that by having a company like Walmart do that versus the state trying to handle it, or even local agencies just trying to handle it?
Yes, again, a great question. Thank you for asking. So I mentioned before how important the drug naloxone was. That's an opioid antagonist. It interferes with receptors. It can keep a person from overdosing in some instances. You've got to make sure that the product can get into the hands of each individual officer. And how does that happen? So we can push for product to be made available. We can buy it in volumes. We can push to have the manufacturers give it to us. But we then have to facilitate how do we distribute it throughout the state? How do we get it into the hands of the agencies or directly into the hands of the officers? Through the Department of Health, we have HEROES grants where agencies can apply and get naloxone supplied to their agencies. This is an overlay program that will allow Walmart stores throughout the state of Florida to give the product directly to the officers. So sadly, you will hear instances where a first responder will administer a dose. They could save a life. They go back out on duty and they're immediately in need of a dose again, because in many instances, they will save multiple lives in one shift. Sadly. So let me finish this. Thank you for your efficiency, but I will finish this. And what's so important about this and why I'm so grateful to Walmart is that this will allow that officer on the street, saves a life, administers a dose, can go right to the Walmart that's participating, show them their badge, they get a replenishment, they're right back on the job, saving lives. So thank you for that question. You did a much better job of laying out the program than I did in my initial presentation. So thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, again, thank you for...
Add more doses to the units. The chief might be able to answer this. Does every unit have one dose, and this is, like she said, they go to Walmart, or now can they carry multiple doses for this program, or how does now every unit will have a dose?
I can answer that, and you can add on if you'd like, Chief. So this is a statewide program, the Helping Heroes program. Just to put it in perspective, in 1 year's time, in 2022, over 50,000 doses of Narcan were administered. In this program, we expect that we will double that number in dosages available throughout the state, and the accessibility to officers while they are on shift will improve. So not only is this getting it to more locations that are available for officers, it will be on ready demand for them as they need it, as they administer it. And Chief, I don't know if you wanted to follow up with anything.
I think that covers it very well. I mean, this is about having a rapid access to it. You've heard a story from Ashley Hinkebine already. She did what she did, she needed another supply. We can get her back on the road with another supply and not have to sit there for 3 minutes with anxiety waiting for the fire department to get there. They get there very quickly, but 3 minutes is a long time when you're watching somebody die. So this is a great program.
All right, thank you.